Hi, everybody. It's Marta, main candidate for Boulder County Commissioner District 2. As promised, my campaign team and we've been receiving texts and messages. I've been getting phone calls and messenger with questions about this campaign, and it makes it complicated when we are not in person and we're not having events and candidate forums and debates, etc. So we're trying to figure out some other creative ways to add some information. And so Ask Marta Anything is about to happen in our first segment. So I am going to bring in Dawn, who is a volunteer on the campaign, who's been helping manage some of those questions. So we're going to do a 60-second response and just keep moving and get through. This is our English segment, and we'll have a different one in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking community members as well. So Dawn, I'm ready. You tell us.
All right. First question right out the gate. What is a county commissioner?
Good question. So that is really the number one question that I've been getting, and it's so important. I've got a lot of people reaching out just to try to differentiate in this primary. The role of county commissioners is really two things. The first piece is allocation distribution, and for me, what needs to be more transparent and accountable way of distributing that $430 million budget. And the other piece is supporting and managing 2,000 Boulder County employees. And so all of my background and skill sets uniquely set me up to do that particular role with a lens of equity for Boulder County as a commissioner.
Thank you. Now, I do realize that I'm going to ask you some questions that may not be Boulder County Commissioner area, but I still want to ask them because I want people to know where they could go, what their resources are, which is one thing that public officials do. So hope that's good.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question is, what is your feeling about energy independence?
Great. That's an important question. So there's a couple different pieces for me. One, I have been around the environmental movement my entire life. There's a serious connection when we talk about eco-justice and the amount of people in our own communities, statewide, nationally, globally, and certainly locally, that we're seeing that are most affected by our inability so far to move away from oil and gas development. And so I will continue the same conversation I've had that we need to move towards renewable energy. And one of my goals is to make sure that we include more people from our community in that conversation and the move into just transition and renewable energy jobs.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And that came in under 60 seconds, which is
yay, awesome. I'm trying to.
Yeah. So the next question is similar. It's asking about how will you practically and effectively use what we already have, our resources that we have in Boulder County?
That's a really good question when we talk about being stewards of our resources, and that's just part of kind of my life path. And it may be some of it from being a single mom and raising two boys and always doing more with literally less. And so that's the frame of mind that I will continue to lead with. And what that means is even if there's money there, it doesn't mean that we have to spend it. And anybody who's ever worked in an organization, institution, or board committee with me knows that I will question the decision around using resources if it's not very clear why, what the outcomes are going to be, and how we're going to let community know about that. And so I'll use that same methodology as I lead Boulder County as a commissioner.
Wonderful, thank you. Next is, how will you care for the older population in Boulder County?
Sure. So Boulder County, one of the departments, folks, if you're not familiar, is aging services, and some of the departments that are completely connected to the programming and resources for our aging population. And so from a commissioner's purview, that is making sure that we are allocating the funds correctly and also making sure that those programs are meeting all the needs. One I know that isn't currently, just from being out in different areas of the county, is around senior housing and also transportation and the way that we help support folks getting from one place to the other. And so that is on my radar and something I will continue to work for.
Wonderful, thank you. Next up, what is your position on supporting adjuncts and grad students with a living wage? This came from an adjunct in the CCCS system, so it's really important to them.
Thank you for the question. So you're right. One of your kind of talk about at the beginning is some of these questions aren't within county commissioner jurisdiction. It's outside of our purview. And it's also really important for me from a county commissioner standpoint is what's the role in-house to ensure that Boulder County employees are earning living wages or self-sustaining wages. I don't believe the minimum wage in Boulder County is enough. And it's certainly not enough when we look at the data and the numbers for a family who's raising children to be self-sufficient on. And so my goal is to do better for our Boulder County employees so that then we can influence other folks and universities and other institutions and other local governments to take those same steps to care for working families and working members of our community.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What about democratic worker cooperatives and ESOPs? Are you in support of subsidizing and encouraging these more equitable organizational options for workers?
Sure. So a little bit about my background for folks who don't know, I have been self-employed for the last 20 years. And so my experience and my lived work career experience is unique for most of our county commissioners. And that is very connected to some of the issues that we're having around benefits, the way that employment works. A lot of folks in our county have been pushed to contract work, which then turns you into a 1099. You become self-employed, you pay your taxes differently. Those are all experiences that I will bring to the county commissioner table when we start talking about how do we take care of employees and create some other opportunities. And I truly believe after COVID specifically, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to rebuild the way that we support employees around all of the different pieces.
Thank you. Are you in support of expanding the right of workers to unionize locally?
Great. I have met with a few of our labor organizations that are trying to, and I understand from some of those folks that there's already conversation. This is, again, focusing on Boulder County employees, and those dialogues have already begun. And I truly believe I did AFL-CIO organizer training years and years ago as a college student. I didn't know what I was going to do with those skills, and here we are. And so union, I've seen that from the standpoint of how important it can be. The outcome is the same. How do we make sure that workers are cared for, that they have voice, that their wages, their benefits, et cetera, meet their needs? And so I would support unionizing if the workers decide that's the way that they can get to that outcome of being cared for.
Great. Next up, what will you do to keep fracking out of Boulder County?
Sure. Fracking is a really big concern for a lot of folks in Colorado and certainly in other areas as well. And us locally, some of the work that I've been doing is, one, just listening and hearing and being present and questioning the groups that are really on the front lines of that conversation about who else needs to be in the room to be informed. Because to me, that's part of the biggest issue is a lot of community members don't understand the grave implications of oil and gas development. And so I'll continue the same way I have showed up at our commissioner's office in hearings and testifying to keep the moratorium while we work with SB 181. And my goal that I've stated is to ask for a vote to create a path legally to ban fracking in Boulder County.
Thank you. What is your position on Vance Brand Airport? Are you in favor of continuing to accept FAA funding? It's been an ongoing issue in regards to skydiving and other activities that go on there. So I'm curious about your position.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I have reached out to one of the specific groups that's been really focused on that area and have not been able to meet with them. And then once COVID happened, there was no more in-person meeting. So I'm still two things. One, still wanting to hear both sides of that conversation. And two, to make sure that because that's not just county jurisdiction, that is the city of Longmont piece that FAA agreement affects. Putting a stop there could affect other pieces. And so my commitment to folks around aviation noise or quality, whatever, air, water, noise quality, etc., is to make sure that I've heard from both sides, to keep my door open, and to learn enough to help make a decision from a county commissioner's role.
Thank you. Next up, I cannot enjoy my home because of the constant illegal loud mufflers day and night. I live on a busy street. What are you going to do about that?
That is, that feels a little personal right now. And the reason why is because I live on one of the busiest streets in the city of Longmont. So great access to right on a bus line. And as growth and development continues to happen, we hear traffic in a way that we didn't when we first came to this particular site. And so I completely understand that concern. There's also two pieces to that. City of Longmont has jurisdiction over that based on ordinance and noise ordinance. So that particular question, I wouldn't be able to get involved in. I can just say that, one, I empathize, and two, when that becomes an issue outside in county, I will be listening and asking for broad input and community to be part of the solutions and addressing any of those types of issues.
Thank you. And then the last one, how do you feel about defunding the police?
It's a really important question, and one of the first things that I want to say about that is that this is not a new conversation, and we need to stick with it. We need to be continuous on it. There's a lot of misinformation, I believe, about what defunding police means, but it goes back to my experience as, one, as a mother, but two, as a teacher in St. Vrain Valley School District, and back then even asking, how do we change the role of our SROs in schools? And the defunding, to me, is the key component of looking at where's the allocation of resources and how do we, one, as community members, see it and know about it, and how can we reallocate those funds into support and wraparound services that we actually do really well in Boulder County. But again, we need broader participation, meaning the county is responsible to inform more folks about those services, to reallocate the funds in the correct way that are going to meet community needs.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your help for moderating and watching the clock to try and keep us to 60 seconds for each response. This is just—
Notice I didn't have to give you any signal. You did like great, like you've been practicing, and I swear she hasn't. So that's pretty amazing.
Try to keep to 60 seconds. Yeah, that seems to be kind of the time frame for our online forum. So thank you for that. And hopefully folks who have other questions, just reach out onto the website. It's marta2020.org. That's the way that we can address some of the questions, because unfortunately we're not in person, as I said at the beginning. But again, my name is Marta, candidate for Boulder County Commissioner District 2, and I live here in Longmont. Don's a campaign volunteer, so I appreciate you helping moderate and bring us together. Thank you, everybody.